Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Fluent English journey. I am Ava. Have you ever wanted to do something that scared you a little? Something you knew would not be easy, but deep inside, you still wanted to try? Maybe it was learning a new skill, speaking a new language, or standing in front of people and showing something you made. This story begins with a girl named Lena, sitting alone in her small room, looking at a guitar that she bought many months ago. It was quiet, almost too quiet. The only sound was the soft hum of the city outside her window, cars moving far away, and a train passing in the distance. The guitar rested in the corner, covered in a little dust. It had been waiting. Lena looked at it with a small sigh. She had always dreamed of learning to play music. When she was a child, she would listen to songs and imagine herself playing them, her fingers moving easily, her face calm and full of feeling. But every time she tried, she gave up. Her fingers hurt. Her hands felt slow. Her sound was not beautiful, not smooth like in the songs she loved. So she stopped. Now she was 23, working a small job in a bookstore, and every evening she came home, tired. But that night, something was different. Earlier that day, a customer had come into the shop, a man about 50 years old, with kind eyes and a calm smile. He had asked for a book about learning the guitar. Lena helped him find it and asked, "Are you just starting to learn?" He laughed softly. "Starting again," he said. "I stopped for many years. But I think it's never too late to start again, right?" Those words stayed in her head all evening. Never too late to start again. Now, sitting on her bed, she looked at the guitar once more. Her heart felt heavy, but also curious. Maybe, she whispered to herself, maybe I can start again too. She walked slowly to the corner, lifted the guitar, and brushed the dust away. It felt strange in her hands, old but alive, like it had been waiting for her to return. She sat down, opened a video on her phone, a beginner guitar lesson, and pressed play. The teacher's voice was calm, friendly, slow. "Don't worry if you make mistakes," the voice said. "Just start. Every note you play is a step forward." Lena smiled nervously. Her fingers touched the strings. She pressed them down and strummed once. The sound was not pretty, it was uneven, buzzing, but it was real. It was hers. And something inside her changed. The first 10 minutes passed quickly. She played small notes, short sounds. She repeated one chord again and again. Sometimes her fingers hurt, sometimes the sound was wrong. But she didn't stop. She remembered what the man in the bookstore said. It's never too late to start again. At that moment, Lena didn't realize this would become a long journey. A journey of learning, trying, failing, and growing. But that night, she began. And when she put the guitar back in the corner, she didn't feel ashamed. She felt proud. Just a little proud. The next day, when she woke up, her fingers were sore. She laughed at herself as she made coffee. "So this is what a real guitar player feels," she said quietly. She picked up the guitar again before work, only for 5 minutes. The sound was still rough, but she was starting to hear something different, not just noise, but progress. Learning something difficult always starts this way, doesn't it? At first, everything feels impossible. We make mistakes. We compare ourselves to others. We feel slow and small. But if we look closely, every mistake is a small step forward. Lena didn't know this yet. But she was learning it, one sound at a time. That evening, she came home late. The shop had been busy. Her feet hurt, her head was full. She wanted to lie down and rest. But then she saw the guitar again, sitting quietly in the corner. And somehow it made her smile. She thought, maybe 5 minutes again. Just 5. She played the same small notes. Over and over. This time, the sound was a little better. Her fingers moved a little faster. She didn't need to look down as much. And then she laughed because for the first time, She played something that actually sounded like a song. A simple children's song, but still a song. She whispered to herself, "I did it." It was a small victory, but it filled her heart. The next few days passed the same way. Work, then practice. Tiredness, then music. She didn't tell anyone about it. It was her quiet secret. Sometimes she made mistakes, sometimes she forgot to practice, sometimes she felt silly. But she kept going. One evening, she decided to record herself playing, just to hear how it sounded. She placed her phone on the table, pressed record, and started playing slowly. When she finished, she listened. It wasn't perfect, not even close. But it was better than she expected. And as she listened, she smiled again, because she could hear her own effort. It's funny, isn't it? When we learn something difficult, we often think about the result, the success, the final performance, the applause. But the most beautiful part is often hidden, the small, quiet moments when no one is watching, when you keep going even though it's hard. Those are the moments that build strength. Lena was discovering this truth, even if she didn't yet understand it completely. One night, she met her best friend, Sarah, for coffee. Sarah noticed something different about her. "You seem happier these days," Sarah said. "What's going on?" Lena laughed. "I've been playing guitar again." Sarah's eyes widened. "Really? You never told me." "Well," Lena said softly, "I didn't want to say anything until I could actually play something." Sarah smiled. "Play something for me one day, okay?" Lena nodded nervously. "Maybe. One day." But inside, she felt a little fear. Playing in front of someone, that was much harder than playing alone. Still, part of her wanted to try. That night, as she sat in her room, she thought about what Sarah said. "Play something for me one day." The words stayed in her mind like a small challenge. Could she do it? Could she actually play for someone? Her hands trembled a little at the thought. But deep down, she knew, one day, she wanted to share her music. Not to be perfect. Not to impress anyone. But to show herself how far she had come. So, she made a small goal. 3 months from now, she told herself, "I will play a song for Sarah." It felt big, maybe too big. But it was something to move toward. And with that, her real journey began. Over the next few weeks, Lena practiced every day, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for an hour. She learned new chords, new songs, new sounds. Her fingers slowly grew stronger, her movements smoother. She still made mistakes, a lot of them. But she didn't stop. Some days, she felt proud. Some days, she felt frustrated. But every day, she showed up. And that is how difficult things are learned, not by magic, not by talent, but by quiet, consistent effort. As she played one evening, the sound of her guitar filled the small room. She didn't notice the time passing. She didn't think about being perfect. For a few minutes, she was just there, her guitar, and the music. It was simple. It was peaceful. It was the beginning of something beautiful. When we begin something new, something that scares us, we often forget that the first step is the hardest one. Once we take it, the rest slowly begins to move. Lena's first note was not beautiful, but it was real. And from that small, real sound, a whole new part of her life began to grow. So, my friend, as you listen to Lena's story, think about your own first note. What is the thing you've been waiting to start? What skill, what dream, what small challenge is calling your name? Maybe it's learning English. Maybe it's learning to speak with confidence, to express your ideas clearly, to tell your own stories. Remember this: the first step doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. Because every big journey begins with a single small note. Do you know that moment when excitement slowly turns into frustration? When something that felt new and fun yesterday suddenly feels heavy today? That's where Lena found herself about 2 weeks after she made her promise. At first, she had practiced every day with energy and curiosity. She enjoyed the little progress she made. But then, one evening, something changed. She sat on her bed with her guitar as usual. She tried to play the song she'd been practicing for days, a slow, beautiful tune called Morning Light. But tonight, her fingers just didn't want to cooperate. She pressed the wrong strings. The rhythm was off. Her hands felt tired. No, that's not it, she said to herself and started again. But it didn't help. The more she tried, the worse it sounded. Finally, she stopped, sighed, and put the guitar down. Her fingers ached. Her heart sank. Maybe she wasn't good enough. Maybe this was too difficult for her. She looked at the guitar, lying quietly beside her, and whispered, "Why is this so hard?" It was a small question, but a real one, the kind every learner asks at some point. The next few days felt heavy. Lena practiced less. Sometimes she didn't practice at all. She told herself she was tired from work, but deep inside, she was losing hope. Each time she passed by the corner of her room, where her guitar rested, she felt a little guilty, like the guitar was watching her, waiting for her to come back. Have you ever felt that way? When something you loved suddenly becomes something you avoid because it reminds you of how hard it feels. That was Lena's feeling. One Saturday morning, she decided to clean her room. As she picked up her clothes and books, her eyes stopped at the guitar again. She thought about how much she wanted to play it well. But then another voice spoke inside her mind, a quiet but powerful voice that said, "Maybe I'll never be good at this. Maybe I'm just not talented." That voice is one of the biggest enemies of learning. It sneaks into your thoughts and makes you believe that effort doesn't matter. Lena sat on the floor, holding that thought for a while. Then she remembered something the man in the bookstore. It's never too late to start again. Start again. Not be perfect. Not be the best. Just start again. So she picked up the guitar. Her fingers were stiff, but she pressed one chord. Then another. It didn't sound great, but it was a start. And as she played slowly, the feeling came back, that small spark of peace, that quiet focus that made everything else disappear for a while. That day, she decided to change her approach. She realized she had been trying too hard to sound good. She wanted to play songs quickly, like the people in the videos she watched. But maybe, she thought, she needed to slow down to truly learn each sound, each move, one by one. So she made a new plan. From now on, I'll only practice 10 minutes each day, she said. Not to be perfect, just to show up. It seemed simple, but it made a big difference. Every night, no matter how tired she was, Lena picked up her guitar for 10 minutes. She didn't worry about mistakes. She just focused on the sound. And something interesting started to happen. After 1 week, her 10 minutes often became 15. Sometimes even 30. Not because she forced herself, but because she enjoyed it again. One evening, her neighbor, Mr. Patel, an old man who lived next door, knocked on her door. He smiled and said, "I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I hear your guitar sometimes. You're getting better." Lena laughed shyly. "Oh, you can hear that?" "Of course," he said. "You started a little rough, but now it's sounding nice. Keep going." Those small words gave her more power than she expected. It's strange how a few kind words can change how we feel about ourselves. Sometimes, that's all it takes to keep going. Still, the struggle didn't disappear. Some days, Lena felt strong and confident. Other days, she felt like she was moving backward. One night, after a long day at work, she tried a new song, something faster. But it was a disaster. Her timing was off. Her hands slipped. She wanted to cry. She put the guitar down and stared at her reflection in the dark window. "I'm not good at this," she whispered. Maybe I should just stop. But then she noticed something. Her reflection was holding the guitar, not throwing it away. She smiled sadly. If I really wanted to stop, she thought, I wouldn't still be holding it. So she stayed there, quietly, just looking at the instrument, feeling its weight in her hands. After a few minutes, she tried again. And this time, one small part of the song sounded right. Just one small part, but it was enough. She smiled. Okay, she said softly, maybe not tonight, but maybe tomorrow. And that became her way forward, not giving up completely, not pushing too hard, but always saying, maybe tomorrow. Every learner needs that phrase, because tomorrow always gives us another chance. Weeks passed. The days grew warmer. Lena's fingers were stronger now. She could move between chords faster. The sound was cleaner. But she still hadn't played for anyone. Not even for Sarah. One afternoon, while they were having coffee again, Sarah asked, "How's the guitar going?" Lena smiled nervously. "Better. Slowly better. Can I hear you one day?" Sarah asked again. Lena froze for a moment. "Soon," she said, "but not yet." Sarah nodded gently. "Okay, I'll wait." That night, Lena sat on her bed thinking about that moment. Why was she so afraid? Why was it so hard to play for someone else? She realized it wasn't just fear of making mistakes, it was fear of being seen. When we show someone something we're learning, we're not only showing our progress, we're also showing our imperfections. And that can feel scary. But isn't that what courage really is? Doing something even when you're scared? She took a deep breath and looked at her guitar again. Maybe she wasn't ready to perform for someone yet. But she could practice performing, just for herself. So she imagined a small audience in her room, maybe 2 or 3 people sitting in front of her. She sat straight, smiled nervously, and said softly, "Hi, my name is Lena, and today I'm going to play Morning Light." Then she started to play. Her fingers trembled. She made mistakes. She stopped and started again. But she kept going. And when she finished, she laughed because it felt real, even though she was alone. She whispered to herself, "One day, I'll do this for real." Learning something difficult is like climbing a mountain. You look up and think, that's too high. I can't do it. But if you focus only on the next small step, you slowly move forward one step, one note, one word at a time. Lena was learning to do that. She didn't know it, but her small steps were taking her somewhere beautiful. A few days later, she was walking home from work when she saw a man playing guitar on the street. People were standing around him, smiling, clapping, singing along. He wasn't perfect, he missed some notes, laughed, kept playing, but he looked so free. Lena stopped and watched for a long time. When he finished, she walked closer and said, "You play really well." He smiled. "Thank you. I just play for fun. Are you learning too?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. I'm still a beginner." "Then keep playing," he said. "Don't stop. Every note you play teaches you something." She thanked him and walked home, feeling something new, not fear, not pressure, but inspiration. Maybe one day, she thought, she could be that confident too. That night, she picked up her guitar and played the same song she'd been practicing for weeks. Her hands moved more smoothly. The rhythm flowed. She closed her eyes and just played. When the song ended, she smiled, not because it was perfect, but because she could finally feel the music, not just the struggle. Sometimes, the hardest part of learning something new is not the work itself, but the emotions, the fear, the frustration, the self-doubt. But every time you face those feelings and keep going, you grow stronger inside. Lena didn't just learn how to play chords or songs. She was learning how to stay patient, how to believe in small progress, and how to be kind to herself. And that was the real lesson. The struggle was not over. In fact, it was only the middle of her journey. But now she understood something important. Mistakes are not signs of failure. They are signs of learning. She smiled at her reflection again and said, "Okay, I'm not perfect, but I'm getting there." And so, as the days turned into weeks and her music slowly grew louder, Lena's confidence grew too. Not fast, not easily, but honestly. And that kind of growth, the quiet kind, the real kind, is the one that lasts forever. The sky was soft and gray that morning, and the air smelled like rain. Lena woke up early, even before her alarm. It was her day off, no work, no rush. Just quiet. She made a cup of tea and looked out of her window at the city below. Cars were moving slowly, lights glowing on wet streets. The world looked peaceful, almost sleepy. Her guitar rested in its usual corner, waiting. She smiled. She had been practicing for almost 2 months now, every day, little by little. Her fingers had changed. They were stronger, tougher, even a little sore, but in a good way. She sat down and began to play Morning Light again. The sound was different now. Smoother. Clearer. Like the song had finally become part of her. But still, she hadn't shown anyone. Not yet. Later that day, she decided to visit her parents. It had been a few weeks since she last saw them. She took the train out of the city, watching the buildings slowly turn into trees and small houses. Her mother opened the door with a warm smile. "Lena, you're here." Her father called from the living room, "Come in, come in." "We were just having coffee." Lena sat with them, feeling the comfort of home. They talked about work, friends, and simple things. But as they chatted, her eyes fell on something familiar, an old photo on the wall. It was a picture of her when she was 10, holding a small toy guitar, smiling brightly. She pointed at it and laughed. "I used to love that guitar." Her father nodded. "Yes, you played that thing every day. Until one day, you just stopped." Lena looked down. "Yeah, I remember." Her mother smiled softly. "You know, we still have it. In the attic." "Really?" "Of course," her mother said. "Do you want to see it?" They went upstairs, and her mother opened an old box. Inside, under some books and toys, was the small red toy guitar. Lena laughed. "I can't believe this is still here." She strummed it once. The sound was rough and thin, but it made her laugh even more. Her father chuckled. "You used to sing with that guitar all day. You'd make up songs about your cat, your friends, your breakfast." They all laughed together. But inside, Lena felt something, a warm memory, a reminder of why she wanted to play in the first place. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about joy. That night, when she got home, she took her real guitar and sat by the window. She looked at the city lights and whispered, "Let's play just for fun tonight." She played freely, not worrying about mistakes, not thinking about timing, just feeling the sound. And for the first time in a long time, she smiled while playing. That was her breakthrough. Sometimes breakthroughs don't look dramatic. They're quiet, gentle, and deeply personal. They come when we stop trying to be perfect and start enjoying the process. Lena realized that her problem wasn't that she couldn't play well enough. It was that she had forgotten to love playing. Now she remembered. A few days later, while at work, her manager said something unexpected. "Hey Lena," he said, "we're organizing a small open mic night here next month. You know, for customers who want to read poetry or play music. You should join." Lena froze. "Me? No, I'm not ready." Her manager smiled. "You've been talking about your guitar a lot lately. It could be fun. Just one song. No pressure." She shook her head. "I don't think so." But all day, the thought stayed in her mind. One song. No pressure. Could she do it? That evening, she told Sarah about it. "An open mic night?" Sarah said, excited. "That's amazing. You should totally do it." I don't know. Come on, Lena. You've been practicing for months. What are you waiting for? I'm scared, Lena admitted. What if I make mistakes? What if I freeze? Sarah smiled gently. Then you make mistakes. Everyone does. But you'll still be the one who tried. Lena looked down, quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, maybe I'll think about it. That night, she practiced again. The idea of performing made her nervous. Her hands trembled even when she was alone. But she also felt something else, excitement. She imagined what it would be like, standing in front of a small group, the soft light on her face, her guitar in her hands. It was scary, but beautiful. Maybe this was the next step. So, Lena made another promise to herself. This time, she said, I won't play for perfection. I'll play for courage. From that day, her practice changed. She no longer focused only on technique. She practiced speaking before playing, saying her name, introducing her song, taking a deep breath. She practiced smiling through mistakes. And every night, she imagined the same small scene, people listening, nodding, maybe clapping softly when she finished. It felt real. Days passed quickly. The open mic night was getting closer. Lena still felt nervous, but now it was a good kind of nervous, the kind that means something important is coming. One evening, she told Sarah, I think I'm going to do it. Sarah's eyes lit up. Really? That's amazing. Lena smiled. I'm scared, but I'll try. Sarah laughed. That's the spirit. The night before the event, Lena couldn't sleep. Her heart was racing. She sat in her room, playing her song one last time. The sound filled the space, soft, a little shaky, but full of feeling. She whispered to herself, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest. She looked at her reflection again, and this time, she saw someone different, someone who had struggled, learned, and grown. Tomorrow, she said, I'll play my first real song. The next evening, she arrived at the bookstore cafe. The lights were warm, people were chatting softly, and the small stage was set with a microphone and a stool. Her heart pounded as her manager waved. Lena, you made it. She nodded nervously. Yeah, I guess I did. Sarah was there too, smiling and waving from a table near the front. You've got this, she mouthed silently. Lena smiled back, though her hands were shaking. She watched as others performed. One man read a poem, a woman sang a soft jazz song, another played piano. Then her name was called. Next, we have Lena, who's going to play something on guitar. Her stomach turned. Her hands felt cold. But she stood up. Step by step, she walked to the stage, sat on the stool, and took a deep breath. The microphone looked huge. The light was bright. She could feel her pulse in her neck. She looked down at her guitar, then up at the small crowd. Hi, she said softly, her voice a little shaky. My name is Lena. I've been learning guitar for a few months. I'm not perfect, but I wanted to share a song called Morning Light. The audience smiled encouragingly. She began to play. The first few notes were rough. Her hand slipped. But she didn't stop. She kept playing slowly, carefully, breathing through the nerves. And then, halfway through the song, something shifted. The fear faded. The rhythm found her. The sound became clear and warm. She closed her eyes and played. For those few minutes, she wasn't nervous anymore. She wasn't thinking about mistakes. She was just there, inside the music, connected to every sound. When the final note faded, the room was silent for a second, and then applause. Real applause. Lena smiled, almost in disbelief. She whispered, "Thank you," and stepped off the stage. Sarah hugged her tightly. You did it. Lena laughed, her eyes shining. I can't believe it. I really did it. That night, as she walked home under the streetlights, she felt lighter than ever before. She didn't feel like a beginner anymore. Not because she was perfect, but because she had been brave. She had faced her fear and turned it into music. And that's when she realized something powerful. Success is not about how perfectly you do something. It's about having the courage to do it at all. When she got home, she placed her guitar gently back in the corner. But this time, it didn't look like an instrument waiting to be played. It looked like a friend, one that had walked with her through fear, frustration, and now triumph. She whispered softly, "Thank you." Then she smiled and said, "Let's see where we go next." The next morning, Lena woke up to a message from her manager. It said, "People loved your performance last night. Would you like to play again next month?" She smiled at the screen, her heart calm and proud. "Yes," she typed back. "I'd love to." And just like that, the girl who once stared at a dusty guitar in the corner was now someone who played music for others, not because she was fearless, but because she learned to keep going even when afraid. That was her breakthrough. Sometimes we wait for a big moment, a big success, a big reward, but often, the real breakthrough is something quiet, the moment you decide not to give up. Lena's breakthrough didn't happen on stage. It began the moment she whispered, "I'll try again." And that small decision changed everything. A soft winter morning light touched Lena's window. The city outside was quiet, half asleep, with the smell of coffee drifting from a nearby cafe. She sat at her small table, holding her guitar pick between her fingers, still feeling the echo of that night, the applause, the smiles, the sound of her song floating in the air. It had been 1 week since her first performance. But every time she thought about it, her heart still danced. She remembered the moment when her hands trembled, then slowly found the rhythm. She remembered the faces in the crowd, people she didn't even know, nodding along to her music. For the first time in a long time, she had seen herself as someone capable, brave, and real. Something inside her had changed. She wasn't only learning to play an instrument anymore. She was learning something bigger, how to face fear, how to keep going, how to believe in small progress. And this new confidence began to appear in other parts of her life too. At the bookstore where she worked, Lena used to stay quiet, doing her job politely but avoiding long conversations. She often let her coworkers take the lead with customers because she was afraid to make mistakes, afraid of saying the wrong thing. But now, things felt different. One afternoon, a young woman entered the shop, looking nervous. Hi, the woman said softly. "I'm trying to find a book about starting something new. Maybe learning a skill?" Lena smiled. "I think I know exactly what you need." She walked her to the self-improvement section and pulled out a book called Small Steps to Big Dreams. "This one helped another customer recently," Lena said. "It's all about learning slowly and kindly." The woman smiled. "That sounds perfect." As Lena helped her at the counter, she realized something. Her voice sounded calm, clear, and kind. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't afraid. She was speaking like someone who believed in her own words. Maybe the guitar had taught her that too, how to stay calm when things feel uncertain. That evening, she told Sarah about it. They were sitting in a quiet cafe sipping tea. "You know," Lena said, "playing guitar didn't only change how I play. It changed how I talk. I used to be so afraid to speak up." Sarah smiled. "I can see that. You sound more confident." Lena laughed softly. "Maybe it's because of all those nights practicing alone. I learned to listen, to really listen to my own sound. Now I listen better to people too." Sarah nodded. "That's what music does. It teaches you to hear life." Those words stayed with Lena for a long time. Over the next few weeks, she noticed more changes. She began greeting customers with a warmer voice, sharing stories about books she loved. Sometimes, she even laughed loudly, something she used to hide. And little by little, she started helping her manager organize small events at the bookstore. She made posters, sent messages, and talked to local artists. Every conversation, every smile, felt like another small performance, another stage. Each time she spoke in front of people, she felt the same fear she used to feel before playing guitar. But now, she knew what to do with that feeling. She didn't fight it. She breathed through it. Just like when her hands used to shake before playing her song. One rainy evening, while closing the shop, her manager said, "You know, Lena, you've changed a lot since you started here. You seem happier." Lena smiled. "Maybe I am." "What happened?" She thought for a second, then said simply, "I learned to keep going, even when I'm scared." Her manager laughed softly. "That's a good skill to have." "Yes," Lena said. "It really is." That night, back home, Lena sat by the window again with her guitar. The rain was falling softly outside, tapping against the glass like a gentle rhythm. She played a new song, one she had written herself. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't perfect. But it was hers. She called it "Starting Again." It told the story of a girl who found her courage in small steps, who learned to listen to the music inside herself. When she finished playing, she looked out at the rain and whispered, "I did it again. I started something new." Sometimes, transformation doesn't happen in one big moment. It happens in many small ones, tiny decisions that change who we are, one breath, one word, one note at a time. Lena's transformation had begun the moment she picked up her guitar that dusty night months ago. But now it was alive in everything she did. A few weeks later, her friend Sarah invited her to a small gathering, a dinner with some friends from work. Lena hesitated at first. She didn't know most of them. In the past, she would have said no. But now she said, "Sure, I'll come." That evening, she found herself sitting at a big table filled with laughter and stories. People were talking about their hobbies, their dreams, their lives. At one point, someone asked, "So, Lena, what do you like to do after work?" Lena smiled shyly. "I play guitar." "Really? That's amazing. How long have you been playing?" She thought about it. "I guess, not too long. But it feels like a long time because I've learned so much." "Do you ever perform?" Lena laughed. "Just once so far. It was terrifying, but also wonderful." Everyone smiled and asked her to tell the story. As she spoke, she realized something. She was telling her story comfortably, using her voice, her expressions, her rhythm. She wasn't thinking about grammar or perfection. She was just speaking from the heart. Her story made people laugh, smile, and nod with understanding. That night, on her way home, she thought, maybe learning to play guitar helped me learn to tell stories too. And she was right. Because storytelling, like music, is about emotion, rhythm, and connection. Soon after, her manager asked her to host the next open mic night. Not to play, but to introduce the performers. When he told her, she froze for a second. "Me? Talk in front of everyone?" "Why not?" he said. "You're friendly. You know how to make people feel comfortable." She thought about it and smiled. "Okay, I'll try." The night of the event, she stood on the small stage again, but this time without her guitar. She held the microphone and looked at the crowd. "Good evening, everyone," she began. Her voice trembled at first, but she smiled and continued. "Welcome to our open mic night. We're so happy you're here." She introduced the first performer, then the next, and the next. Each time she spoke, she felt more at ease. She even joked a little, and people laughed kindly. At one moment, between performances, she looked around the room, the same room where she had once played nervously, and thought, "I belong here now." That was transformation. Not magic, not luck. Just courage repeated, one small moment at a time. A few days later, she received a message from a young customer who had been at the event. It said, "Hi, Lena. I just wanted to say thank you. Seeing you host last night inspired me. I'm shy too, but now I want to try speaking in front of people." Lena read the message twice, then smiled. For the first time, she had become someone's inspiration. She whispered, "If only you knew how scared I was once." And that's the truth about transformation. It's not about becoming fearless. It's about becoming someone who acts even when afraid. Lena had transformed from the girl who hit her guitar in the corner to a woman who shared her music and her voice with others. She still made mistakes. She still felt nervous sometimes. But now she knew that mistakes were part of the song. One Sunday morning, she visited her parents again. This time, she brought her guitar. After lunch, her father said, "Play something for us." She smiled. "Okay." She played Starting Again, the song she wrote herself. Her parents listened quietly, smiling through the melody. When she finished, her mother wiped a small tear and said, "That was beautiful, Lena. You've really grown." Lena nodded softly. "I think I finally understand what it means to learn something difficult. It's not just about skill. It's about patience, courage, and heart." Her father chuckled. "Sounds like life itself." She laughed. Exactly. That evening, back home, she recorded her song and uploaded it online, not for fame, but as a memory, a marker of her journey. She titled it "For Anyone Starting Again." She wrote in the description, "This song is for anyone learning something difficult. Don't give up. Every mistake is a step forward. Keep going." When she pressed post, she felt calm. Not nervous. Not worried. Just proud. Days later, she received comments from people around the world. "This gave me hope. I'm learning piano and was about to quit. Thank you. Your voice is gentle. It feels honest." Lena smiled as she read each one. She realized that her small journey, once private and quiet, was now helping others. Her effort had grown beyond her room, beyond her fear. That's the power of transformation. It doesn't stop with you. It spreads. That night, she sat in the dark, holding her guitar close. She whispered, "Thank you for teaching me more than music. You taught me courage." Then she strummed a single soft chord, the same one she had played on her very first night, and listened to how different it sounded now. It was clearer, warmer, full of life. And she smiled, because she knew that sound wasn't just from the guitar. It was from her. When we learn something difficult, whether it's music, English, painting, or anything else, we often think the goal is to master the skill. But the real goal is to master ourselves, to become patient, to stay kind, to try again, to believe in progress we cannot yet see. That is what transformation means. So, if you're listening right now and learning something hard, maybe English, maybe something else, remember Lena's story. Your mistakes are not failures. They're music in the making. Your slow progress is not weakness. It's the rhythm of real growth. Keep showing up. Keep playing your song, even when your hands shake. Because one day, without realizing it, you'll look back and see how far you've come, and you'll smile, just like Lena did, and whisper, "I've changed." The sun was setting over the city. Orange light touched the buildings, and long shadows crossed Lena's small room. The guitar leaned against the wall beside her desk, where a cup of tea sent up a thin line of steam. The room felt calm, peaceful in the way it only feels after a long, honest journey. It had been almost a year since the night she first touched those dusty strings again. A whole year since she whispered to herself, "Maybe I can start again." She smiled at the memory. It felt like another lifetime, yet also like yesterday. So much had changed. The frightened girl who once avoided her own reflection had slowly turned into someone who could stand on a stage, speak in front of people, and share her sound with the world. She took a deep breath and opened a small notebook. Inside were pages filled with short notes, chords to learn, songs to try, thoughts to remember. At the top of one page she had written months ago, "Play for courage, not perfection." She touched the words gently with her fingers and whispered, "That line saved me." That evening, Lena sat by the window and watched the city lights begin to appear one by one. She thought about what she had learned, about effort, patience, and fear. She wanted to remember every lesson before life became busy again. She opened her notebook to a fresh page and began to write. Lesson 1. The first step is the hardest, but also the most important. She smiled as she wrote it. If I had waited for the perfect moment to begin, I never would have started. The perfect moment doesn't exist. You create it by beginning. Lesson 2. Mistakes are not the enemy. They're teachers. She remembered the early days when every sound buzzed and her fingers hurt. If she had stopped then, she never would have reached the music. Now she knew. Mistakes are proof that you're learning. Lesson 3. Progress is invisible until one day it isn't. She laughed softly. I played for weeks thinking I was going nowhere. Then suddenly, one day, the song appeared under my fingers. Real growth hides, and then it surprises you. Lesson 4. Fear never disappears. You just learn to play through it. Even before her second performance, her hands had shaken. But now she saw fear differently. It wasn't a sign to stop. It was a sign that something mattered. Lesson 5. Learning something difficult changes more than your skill. It changes your voice. She looked at the guitar, then at herself in the window's reflection. Because of music, she had learned to speak with calm, to listen better, to connect. Music had taught her how to sound like herself. She closed the notebook and rested her head against the cool glass. Outside, people were walking, laughing, calling out to each other. The rhythm of life. And she thought, maybe learning is like that too, a rhythm. Sometimes slow, sometimes fast, but always moving forward. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Sarah. Hey, remember when you could barely play one chord? I just listened to your new song online. I'm so proud of you. Lena laughed. She replied, Thank you. I'm proud of me too. Then she added a second message. Let's meet soon. I want to teach you a few chords. Because now it was her turn to pass the courage on. Later that week, they met in the park. The air was cool, the sky soft and blue. Birds sang above them. Lena handed Sarah the guitar. Go on, try this chord, she said. Sarah pressed her fingers down, made a strange buzzing sound, and laughed. It's harder than it looks. Lena smiled. Exactly. But that's how it starts. They spent an hour together laughing, missing notes, trying again. Lena realized how wonderful it felt to be on the other side of fear, to be the one encouraging someone else. As the sun dipped lower, Sarah asked, Do you think you'll keep playing forever? Lena thought for a moment. I think so, she said. But even if one day I stop playing guitar, I'll never stop learning. Because now I know how it feels to start, to fail, and to rise again. That feeling never leaves you. Sarah nodded. That's beautiful. That night, Lena walked home slowly. The city lights shimmered like small stars. Each step echoed softly against the pavement. She thought about all the people around her, each one probably learning something difficult, fighting their own quiet battles. Maybe everyone was playing their own invisible song. She entered her apartment, turned on a small lamp, and sat down with her guitar once more. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the street below. She tuned the strings carefully, then spoke aloud as if talking to an invisible friend. Do you remember how afraid I was? She said with a gentle smile. I used to think success meant being perfect. But now I see, it just means being brave enough to begin, again and again. She strummed softly and let the sound fill the room. Then she began to speak, almost as if narrating her own story for others who might one day listen. When you learn something difficult, it feels like climbing a mountain in the fog. You can't see the top. You only see the next small rock beneath your feet. But if you keep moving, if you trust the climb, one day you'll turn around and see how high you've come. She paused, smiled, and whispered, "And you'll be proud." After a while, she recorded a short message for her listeners online. Her voice was calm, friendly, and slow, the same tone that had once guided her through those early lessons. "Hi, it's Lena. I wanted to share something with anyone who's trying to learn music, language, anything. Don't rush. Don't compare. Every mistake, every slow day, every small effort counts. When you feel stuck, just remember, progress is quiet, but it's happening. Keep showing up. You're already on your way." She pressed upload and felt a deep peace inside. Because this, she realized, was not just about guitar anymore. It was about life and about voice, about finding your own rhythm and helping others find theirs. The following weekend, she returned to the bookstore cafe for another open mic night. This time she didn't play. She simply sat among the listeners, clapping for every performer. A teenager stumbled through his first song, his voice shaking, his hands clumsy on the strings. Lena smiled and clapped the loudest, because she knew exactly how he felt. And she also knew, if he just kept playing, one day he would smile the same way she was smiling now. After the show, the boy came over shyly. "Hi," he said. "You were clapping for me." "Thank you." Lena laughed. "Of course. You were brave." He looked down. "I was really nervous." "I know," she said kindly. "But you did it. That's what matters." He smiled a little. "Do you play too?" "Yes," she said softly. "And I used to be just like you." Walking home that night, she realized her story had come full circle. Once, she had been the beginner who needed encouragement. Now she was the voice giving it. That is what transformation really means, not to become perfect, but to become someone who helps others believe they can start too. At home, she took out her notebook one last time and wrote at the bottom of the final page, "Everything I learned from the guitar can also teach me how to live, how to speak, how to grow." Then she added a final line, "When you find your courage, share it." She closed the book, turned off the light, and let the silence fill the room. Somewhere in that silence was music, the soft sound of a story ending, but also beginning again. The next morning, she woke early, opened the window, and let the cool air in. The city was alive with movement. Children were walking to school. A woman was jogging past. Someone was practicing piano in a nearby apartment. She listened for a moment and thought, everyone is learning something. Then she picked up her guitar, smiled, and whispered, "Let's start again." A simple sentence. A complete circle. A new beginning. She played a few quiet chords. The sound floated out through the open window, mixing with the morning noise, cars, voices, laughter. It was no longer just her sound. It was part of the world. And if you are listening to this story now, somewhere far away, maybe you can hear that message inside the music. Start again. Be gentle with yourself. Speak slowly. Learn naturally. Don't give up. Because every time you begin again, you write a new chapter of your own story. So here, at the end of Lena's journey, let's pause together and take a breath. Think about something difficult you are learning, maybe English, maybe something else. Remember how she started, nervous, unsure, afraid of mistakes. And remember how she finished, calm, confident, grateful for every step. You can do the same. Every word you speak in English, every time you listen closely, every small effort, it all counts. You are learning to express your heart, just like Lena learned to play her song. So keep listening, keep speaking, keep believing that your voice matters. Because it does. When Lena finally set her guitar down that evening, she didn't feel like the story had ended. She felt like it had only changed shape, from music into memory, from sound into strength. And somewhere, quietly, she knew her journey would never really be over. It would simply continue, note by note, word by word, moment by moment, just like yours will if you keep going.